Shonen Jump is the weekly magazine behind some of the world's most popular manga, including series such as Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Naruto. With its vast history and variety of different series, it's no surprise that there have been multiple crossover games bringing together fan-favorite characters across all different genres. And I thought it would be interesting to go back and look through every single one, especially considering they range so heavily in terms of different game genres. There are RPGs, platform fighting games, arena fighters, and not to mention, they also vary a lot in terms of quality itself, from really good to really bad. I played every single Shonen Jump crossover game. The first ever Shonen Jump crossover game was released all the way back in 1989 for the Nintendo Famicom, that being Famicom Jump Hero Retsuden, which translates to Famicom Jump Hero History. The game was released on the Famicom on February 15th and is an action RPG. The storyline brought together many different worlds and characters from the most popular Shonen Jump manga at the time, such as Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star. The game was published by Bandai and developed by Tosei, who would go on to develop many different Dragon Ball games. Hero Retsuden performed well commercially, selling over 1 million units in Japan, but wouldn't perform as well critically, receiving a 21 out of 40 from Famitsu. Nevertheless, I'm still excited to check out the very first Shonen Jump crossover game. When we first boot up the game, we're met with a short little cutscene that describes the story of the game. Essentially, we play as a boy who is a fan of Shonen Jump, and one day, while reading the magazine, he's sucked into it and transported to the magical world of Jump. It's nothing too groundbreaking, but I'm still excited to check it out. So, let's jump right into it. Yeah, so Hero Retsuden released exclusively in Japan, which means the game is exclusively available in Japanese. For the time, this made complete sense. Back in 1989, Jump's manga was not very popular in the West at all. Hell, not even Dragon Ball was. That wouldn't be until the late 90s with the release of the Dragon Ball Z anime. So spending the time and money to translate and distribute this game in the West wouldn't have made any sense, or sense for that matter. At the time, this was very understandable, but what sucks now is that in the modern day, if you don't read Japanese, then you can't really enjoy it. I tried to play through this game, I really did, but there's only so far you could get in an NES era RPG without being able to read any of the instructions. And from what I did play, it's definitely an NES era RPG. That's for sure. Going into this, I figured it was going to be a turn-based RPG along the lines of Final Fantasy, but it's actually an action RPG. In combat, you have 2 attacks, a melee attack and a ranged attack, with your ranged attack needing time to recharge after it's used. And that's the combat. Obviously, this is a Famicom game, so the gameplay is going to be simplistic, and that's fine, but this also just handles really poorly. There's a recharge time on your projectile and not on your melee, but it still feels like there is because of how stiff and slow it is. Outside of combat, your time is spent traversing the overworld in search of allies to join your party. Throughout the overworld, there are towns to explore, containing shops and restaurants to buy items from. There are also enemies scattered about that you can fight. But who cares about all the generic RPG fluff? You're here for the Shonen Jump stuff. In order to progress through the game, you need to recruit 16 Jump Heroes, those being Kenshiro, Nukesaku Aida, Son Goku, Ryo Saiba, Arale Norimaki, Pegasus Seiya, Momotaro Tsurugi, Mankichi Tokawa, Raiki Kikoku, Joseph Joestar, Joji Kano, Isamu, Tsubasa Uzaro, Taru Yamashita, Hyuchi Uno, and Kinnikuman. With this selection, we get a nice variety of different series and genres represented in this game. And this roster and the number of other Jump series represented throughout the game is the real appeal here. The combat is poor, and the rest of the game is just an NES-era RPG, but you're really here for the character interactions and the cool bits of Shonen Jump game history, such as how this was the first video game appearance for the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, which is why it's extra annoying that this game is only available in Japanese, because if you don't read Japanese, you're not going to be able to enjoy any of this. So if you can read Japanese, I'd recommend trying it out. You can get some enjoyment looking at all the different classic characters and locations from older Shonen Jump titles. And if you don't read Japanese, then you're kinda out of luck, unless you want to look at low quality pixel art of different Shonen characters. Let's move on to the next game, where hopefully we can actually play it this time. Damn it. Our next game is a sequel to Famicom Jump Hero Retsuden, titled Famicom Jump 2 Saikyou no Shichinin, which translates to Famicom Jump 2 7 Strongest People. It released 2 years after its predecessor on December 2nd, 1991, also on the Famicom as the name would imply. This time there are 7 main characters, as the name would imply, versus the previous game's 16, and this time it is a turn-based RPG versus the previous action RPG. And it's also only in Japanese. For all the same reasons as the previous game, it released exclusively in Japan, and for that, my general perception of this game is pretty similar to Hero Retsuden. I'd argue the combat is better, albeit I couldn't read what moves I was even using because again, it's all in Japanese. Here the roster of playable characters is smaller, less than half the previous, this time featuring Goku, Ryotsu Kankichi, Momotaro Tsurugi, Jotaro Kujo, Tachon, Tararuto, and Maida Tyson. Much like the previous games here, the objective is to explore the overworld, defeating enemies, in search of the 7 heroes. I don't really have a lot to say about this game, as I'd just be repeating a lot of the same points as Hero Retsuden. So again, if you can read Japanese, I'd recommend trying it out. If you can't read Japanese, then you should probably just avoid it. Our next Shonen Jump crossover game is the Game Boy game Cult Jump, released on September 10th, 1993. This was a pretty interesting concept, being an RPG quiz game. In order to progress through the game and defeat enemies, you must answer Shonen Jump themed trivia questions. And if you thought playing RPGs in a language you couldn't read was hard, try playing a trivia game in a language you can't understand. The story here is that the King of Jump has been locked away on the top floor of a castle, and you need to progress through each floor using your Shonen Jump knowledge to save him. There are enemies and boss fights along the way, and the only way to deal damage is by correctly answering trivia questions related to a number of different Shonen Jump series. I like the concept of Cult Jump, an RPG where you can only attack your enemies by answering trivia questions, but when you can't read the trivia questions themselves, this concept kinda just falls apart. However, I was able to beat the first stage by just spamming the first answer option each time, so that's something. I'm starting to sound like a broken record at this point, but if you can read Japanese, and you know a lot about 90s and earlier Shonen Jump manga, then I'd recommend checking out Cult Jump. And if you can't read Japanese, then I guess you can practice pressing the A button or something. Jump Superstars released on August 8th, 2005 on the DS exclusively in Japan. Now I know what you may be thinking, and yes, this game is only in Japanese, but even if you can't read it, it's still pretty fun. Jump Superstars is a platform fighting game reminiscent of games like Super Smash Bros. Just like all the previous games, it was never released outside of Japan. With the others, I could definitely see why, but I never really understood why this game didn't. Around 2005, thanks to Toonami, many anime were becoming increasingly popular in the West, such as the big 3, Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach, which were all headliners for this game. But I guess publisher, Nintendo themselves, didn't want to take the risk of distributing it in America. However, it was still a decent commercial success in Japan, selling around 500,000 copies and being one of Japan's best-selling games in 2005. Critically, it also performed pretty well, receiving generally positive reviews. This success was for a good reason. The game consists of a number of different game modes, mechanics, and characters to support a full experience, even for those who can't even read its native language. The gameplay is very similar to Super Smash Bros, but with one main unique mechanic. For starters, the combat is quite simple with light and heavy attacks, multiple special attacks, and a guard. These attacks and the overall basic movement feel alright. It's obviously not going to feel like new platform fighters, but for a DS game, it's solid. But the real star of the show here is the deck and its coma system. You see, the DS has 2 screens. Holy sh! On the top screen is where the battle takes place, but on the bottom screen, you can build your own deck out of various manga panels, or as the game calls them, coma. These are divided into 3 different types. Help coma, which boosts stats, support coma, which summon a character to perform a simple task, and battle coma, that are fully playable characters that can be switched to mid-battle. You're able to unlock many different coma and customize your deck how you see fit. This is a cool system. I appreciate the customization options, which allow you to make a deck that fits your playstyle. I also really like the presentation of it too. The manga art style is just perfect for a crossover of this nature. And fitting the source material extends to the character roster, which is 34 playable characters. 34 characters is a great number for a fighting game on the DS, and this roster in particular covers a wide variety of series from different genres and different time periods. Those 34 characters include Eve, Ichigo, Bobobo, Donpatch, Kazukimoto, Alan Walker, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Gotenks, Arali Norimaki, Dr. Mashirito, Gintoki, Gon, Jotaro Kujo, Dio, Suna, Ryotsu Kankichi, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Sanji, Robin, Jaguar, Kenshin, Yo Asakura, Anaki Oyama, Yami Yugi, and Yusuke. And, not to mention, thanks to the coma system, there are a number of additional characters who couldn't make it as fully fledged fighters, still appearing as support characters. So in total, there were 27 different series represented in game. But as we know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Because there is such a large roster, characters do sometimes feel samey and not that distinct from one another, and there isn't really much to do. There is a story mode, but most of the missions are either just regular battles or some uninspired special stage like destroying all the walls of the stage, which just boils down to walk towards a wall, spam the attack button, move to the next wall, repeat. But overall, this is still a fun game to check out. The size of the character roster and the customization of the coma system are great additions to the game, and even if you can't read the directions, if you just look up a guide, you can easily get the hang of this game. I think this is the first game here that I can recommend to everybody. That is until a couple minutes later when I'll recommend its sequel. Our next game is an interesting one. Battle Stadium Dawn is technically a Shonen Jump crossover game, but it only consists of 3 series, Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Naruto, hence the name Dawn. However, like Jump Superstars, is another Smash Bros.-esque platform fighter, this time releasing on the GameCube and PS2 on July 20th, 2006, exclusively in Japan. And again, just like Jump Superstars, the language barrier here doesn't really matter because anyone can easily pick it up and play. It received mixed reviews with a 26 out of 40 from Famitsu, and I think it's an alright platform fighter that leans more into being a party game than a fighting game. The basic gameplay consists of what you'd expect, basic attacks, special attacks, and ultimate attacks. But the unique mechanic here is that there are no individual health bars, rather there is a shared health bar that exists in a tug-of-war system where dealing damage to others increases your share of the health bar, with rounds ending once one player has taken over the entire bar. It's unique for sure, and on paper it sounds interesting, but in practice it just means that matches drag on way longer than they have to. The character roster is decent for what the game is going for. There are 20 playable characters from the 3 represented series, including Boo, Cell, Frieza, Goku, Gohan, Piccolo, Trunks, Vegeta, Chopper, Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, Zoro, Kakashi, Rock Lee, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. It's solid enough, but many have brought up the noticeable lack of a Bleach inclusion, which would have made sense considering Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach were the big 3 at the time. They also could have just easily called the game Bond. When it comes down to game modes, there aren't many unique offerings. There's no story mode, rather there's a pseudo-arcade mode called Battle Stadium mode that features a unique opening and ending cutscene showcasing all of the characters goofing off together. The game mode itself is just a series of regular matches, some 1v1s, and some other group free-for-alls. There are some additional modes like the standard versus mode, and some more interesting ones like item mode that really lean into the idea that this isn't a competitive fighting game, which is why I can ignore the stupid health bar gimmick and the overall clunkiness of it all. Battle Stadium Dawn is alright, you can check it out if you want to, but Jump Superstars and the next game on this list are both platform fighters. They give you a much fuller experience. Jump Ultimate Stars is the sequel to Jump Superstars, featuring more characters, more mechanics, and more things to do. It was released again on the DS exclusively in Japan on November 23rd, 2006, once again being published by Nintendo themselves. This time it was slightly better received than its predecessor, but still generally positive. The gameplay is largely the same, but features a number of new mechanics such as new attacks, and ultimate action, which is an ability with a special effect, not necessarily even dealing damage, that's unique to every character, and new additional versions of characters with their own unique movesets, like QB Naruto and Second Gear Luffy. The Coma system is back this time, with new ways of unlocking more Coma using the evolution chart. Here you can upgrade characters by buying more Coma from an evolution tree, with Coma branching off of each bot choice. The character roster has been upgraded with 56 playable characters, as opposed to the previous 34. Those characters being Eve, Train Heartnet, Bobobo, Don Patch, Ichigo, Rukio, Toshiro, Renji, Kazuki Muto, Alan Walker, Lena Lee, Arale Norimaki, Dr. Mashirito, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Gotenks, Piccolo, Frieza, Kid Buu, Gintoki, Kagura, Kenshiro, Rao, Takobao, Gon, Killua, Jotaro, Dio, Suna, Kimikumen, Ryotsu Kankichi, Nuro Nogami, Toro Muyo, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, Fusuke, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Sanji, Robin, Frankie, Jaguar, Kenshin, Pegasus Seiya, Momotaro Tsurugi, Heihachi, Yo Asakura, Ana Kiyoyama, Yami Yuhi, Yusuke, Kurama, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong like I do every single time, Hayai. And just like the first, thanks to the Coma system, even more series can be represented in the game. The total amount being 41 different series. Jump Ultimate Stars is the ultimate package for any Shonen Jump fan. The gameplay is a solid improvement over the first, the Coma system is still as fun as always, and the sheer number of included characters ensures there's something for everyone, no matter what Jump series you like. So far, this is the Jump crossover game that I can most highly recommend. Even if you're thinking about trying out Jump Superstars, you might as well just skip that one and come in right at Jump Ultimate Stars. We've finally gone to our first Shonen Jump crossover game that was officially released in the West with the full English translation, J-Stars Victory Versus. That's alright. J-Stars Victory Versus is a 3D arena fighting game developed by Spike Chunsoft and published by Bandai Namco for the PS3, PS Vita, and PS4. The interesting thing about this game is that it was first released exclusively in Japan on March 19, 2014 as simply J-Stars Victory Versus, before an enhanced port would be released in North America on June 30, 2015 as J-Stars Victory Versus Plus. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to cover J-Stars Victory Versus Plus as it's the definitive version of this game. Let's start with the gameplay, which is arguably this game's weakest point. It's a 3D arena fighter focusing on 2v2 battles taking place in large destructible arenas. What I don't like about this is that the arenas are so large that you waste a lot of time just running around to find your opponents. The controls don't help either, as they're incredibly sluggish and stiff. But where J-Stars really shines is in its fan service. The character roster features 39 playable characters and 13 support characters, with a total of 32 different series represented in-game. The playable characters include Koro-sensei, Tatsumi Oga, Ichigo, Aizen, Bobobo, Taru Yamada, Areli Norimaki, Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, Kenshiro, Rao, Gintoki, Meisuke Ueno, Gon, Killua, Jonathan Joestar, Joseph Joestar, Kankichi Ryotsu, Madaka Kurokami, Naruto, Sasuke, Madara, Luffy, Ace, Hancock, Akainu, Suna, Kenshin, Makoto, Pegasus Seiya, Momotaro Tsurugi, Saiki K, Lucky Man, Toriko, Zebra, Yusuke, Toguro, and Hayai. What I like about this roster, beyond just the sheer variety of series, is that they controlled themselves. They could have just filled the roster with the same 5 series, but decided to limit themselves to leave room for more niche series. You hearing this? The story mode, while not being the most fleshed out, does feature a unique overworld map to traverse and multiple different storylines featuring different characters, allowing you to see a number of different character interactions. You also get fun fanservice moments like that throughout the game, as during matches, characters have unique voice lines that they say. That's why this game is worth trying out. For the charm alone. While it doesn't have the prettiest visuals or the most smooth gameplay, the character roster and the fan service is what you're really here for, and that spectacle can really make or break a crossover game. Our next 2 games I admittedly have no way of playing, for they are both discontinued mobile games. The first being Jumputi Heroes. It first launched on March 28, 2018, exclusively in Japan, before being shut down on March 27, 2024. It was a puzzle RPG with a large focus on unlocking characters through the gacha system. So basically most mobile anime games. So if that's your thing, then cool, but it's definitely not for me. There is a novelty in seeing a ton of different Shonen Jump characters all together in one chibi art style though. But the fact that it's a mobile puzzle RPG where every character is unlocked through a gacha is a bit off-putting to me. The next mobile game is Weekly Shonen Jump Jikkyou Janjan Stadium, which I also cannot play. It first launched on August 2nd, 2018, exclusively in Japan before being discontinued on August 26th, 2019. This game was always a lot cooler to me because it was basically just a simplified platform fighter on mobile platforms. The initial reveal trailer really got me excited as it breaks down the characters by decade, revealing all of its playable characters. And then I realized it was only launching in Japan and then I cried. It was released as part of Shonen Jump's 50th anniversary, hence why there was a large focus on the year that each character first appeared. It was a cool concept, but only ever lasted a year, never really leaving an impact. Our next game was also released as part of Shonen Jump's 50th anniversary, that being Jump Force. I've talked about Jump Force a lot, and to keep myself from sounding like a broken record, I'm going to keep this brief, as I've already talked about Jump Force for 20 minutes straight before. Jump Force was a 3D arena fighting game developed by J-Stars developer Spike Chunsoft and published by Bandai Namco. It was released on PS4 and Xbox One on February 15th, 2019. On launch, it was immediately met with widespread negative reception, for good reason. Jump Force was riddled with problems. Its repetitive gameplay, ugly visuals, a half-assed story mode, performance issues, insufferable load times, and a lackluster character roster. These problems resulted in the game's online servers being shut down on August 24th, 2022, and the game being delisted from all digital storefronts. But its worst offense is it just wasn't a good Shonen Jump crossover. After playing through so many different Shonen Jump crossover games, the key takeaway from practically every single one is that even when there's a language barrier or lackluster gameplay, you can still always enjoy the novelty of seeing so many different unique characters interacting with one another in ways you could have never imagined. But Jump Force just doesn't do that. Jump Force tries so hard to pander to one type of audience that it forgets what it's supposed to be. Every other game has a diverse cast of characters from all different genres and time periods, as well as some prominent features that really feel like Jump, such as the coma system in Jump Superstars, but Jump Force has neither of those things. Its character roster was comprised of 16 series that are all mainly mainstream battle shonen. There are 57 characters post-DLC, but 6 of those series all have 4 or more characters, whereas a game like J-Stars had only 1 series with 4 characters, while the rest were all less than that. Because of this, Jump Force's roster leaves no room for classic older titles that have been a staple of these games, such as Kochikame or Dr. Slump. There's also no room for genres outside of battle shonen, like Haikyuu and Captain Tsubasa, or more niche series like Saikyou and Medaka Box. On top of that, the game doesn't even look like a Jump crossover. The art style is drab and realistic, which is the exact opposite of all the previous games, and just the overall nature of Weekly Shonen Jump magazine itself. The number one theory for these issues is that Bandai was trying to pander to the West. Notice how aside from J-Stars, Jump Force was the only game to get released in the West. That's why the game's cutscenes look like a Marvel movie, and why all of the characters are from series that mainstream anime fans could recognize. In an attempt to reach a wider audience, Bandai stretched themselves too thin and forgot what the whole point of this game was even about, which was to celebrate the vast history of Shonen Jump's most beloved manga. Fortnite Battle Royale first released on September 26, 2017, but it wouldn't be until November 16, 2021 when it got its first anime collab, Naruto. Since then, it would collab with Jump series Dragon Ball, My Hero Academia, and Jujutsu Kaisen, officially cementing itself as more of a Shonen Jump crossover game than Battle Stadium Dawn ever was. Each anime collaboration would come alongside new limited-time gameplay mechanics as well as purchasable skins. Naruto's collaboration came with kunai that could be found and used in Battle Royale. In terms of skins, there's Naruto, Kakashi, Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, Gaara, Itachi, and Orochimaru. Dragon Ball's collab would like to use the Kamehameha as well as the Nimbus Cloud. It includes skins for Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Beerus, Goku Black, Frieza, Cell, Android 18, Android 17, Bulma, and the Drink. My Hero Academia's items were Deku Smash and Todoroki's Ice Wall, while the skins include Deku, Uraraka, All Might, Bakugo, Kirishima, Ashido, Todoroki, Toga, Dabi, and Shigaraki. Finally, Jujutsu Kaisen's collaboration included Gojo's Hollow Purple, as well as the Cursed Doll technique, with the skins being Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, and Gojo. I don't really know what else to say. I feel like it's Fortnite and everyone's already made their mind up about whether they like it or not. All of these games still have something in them worth trying out. Some might be limited in terms of how much you can enjoy them, but the novelty of seeing all your fan favorite characters together will never not be special. If I had to recommend one title as the best, I'd definitely have to say Jump Ultimate Stars. It is in Japanese, but if you can look up a simple guide, you can very easily get the hang of things. It's got the best character roster, solid gameplay, and it really feels like a manga with its unique concept. But if you want to play as Deku hitting the gritty against War Machine, Jack Sparrow, Peter Griffin, and Snoop Dogg, then Fortnite's the game for you.